Peppa Pig, George's birthday. It's George's birthday today. Mummy Pig hands George a box wrapped in green paper. Happy birthday, George, she says.
Dinosaur!
Cries George, pulling out a purple dinosaur.
Wow!
I knew it would be a dinosaur, Stinky, says Peppa. George waves the toy dinosaur at Peppa. Arr! Too scary, cries Peppa. Peppa has painted a card for George. I was going to paint a flower, says Peppa, but George does not like flowers, so in the end I painted a
Dinosaur!
cries George. Mummy Pig tells George that they are going somewhere very special for his birthday treat. Yippee! Shouts Peppa. Where are we going? You'll see, says Daddy Pig. George's birthday treat is a visit to the dinosaur room at the museum.
Wow!
George loves dinosaurs. They are his favourite thing in the whole world. Not silly old dinosaurs again, groans Peppa. George stops in front of a big green dinosaur. He is standing on a yellow cross. There's a beep, and then roar! George jumps and begins to cry. It's not real, George, says Mummy Pig. Don't be frightened. It's just a robot, says Daddy Pig. Arr! Shouts George at the robo-dino. And there's another surprise, says Mummy Pig. All of Peppa and George's friends are here.
Hooray!
Happy birthday, George, says everyone. Mummy Rabbit has made a delicious birthday cake for George. I knew it would be a dinosaur cake, says Peppa. Mummy Rabbit laughs. What an amazing guess, Peppa. It's time for one last surprise, says Daddy Pig. Can you guess what it is? Something to do with dinosaurs, says Peppa. Everybody runs outside to see. It is a bouncy castle in the shape of a dinosaur. A bouncy dinosaur. George loves bouncy dinosaurs, and so does Peppa. The end. Peppa Pig, Peppa and George's garden. Daddy Pig is sitting in his favourite sunny spot, reading a newspaper. What a perfect day for doing nothing, says Daddy Pig. The only thing that could make it better would be a cup of tea. He goes inside the house to make one. Grandpa Pig has come to see Peppa and George. You're going to have your very own flower garden, he tells them. Peppa and George are very excited. We need a nice sunny spot to plant your seeds, says Grandpa Pig. Grandpa Pig finds the perfect sunny spot and starts to dig Peppa and George's garden. When the garden is ready, Peppa and George will plant their seeds.
Hooray!
Oh, gasped Daddy Pig. What's going on?
We're making a flower garden,
says Peppa. But That's where I sit in my chair and read my newspaper, cries Daddy Pig.
Flowers are more important than chairs and newspapers,
says Peppa. It is time to plant the seeds.
Look, Daddy,
cries Peppa.
Wow.
Peppa has lots of flower seeds. George only has one flower seed, but it is a big one. Some birds have come to see what Peppa and George are doing. They start to eat the seeds.
Shoo, shoo,
calls Peppa.
Leave our flower garden alone.
Daddy Pig gets some water to help the seeds grow. As soon as they see Daddy Pig, the birds fly away.
Daddy scared the birds,
cheers Peppa. Grandpa Pig laughs.
Daddy Pig looks like a scarecrow.
Peppa, George, bath time, calls Mummy Pig.
But what if the birds come back?
asks Peppa. Don't worry, Peppa. I'll make sure the birds don't eat the seeds, says Daddy Pig. The birds come back again. Luckily, Daddy Pig is there to scare them away.
Hooray!
Shoo, shoo, naughty birds, cries Daddy Pig. Daddy Pig guards the seeds until the birds have gone to bed. He is a very good scarecrow. It is 1 week later. Peppa, George, come and look, calls Daddy Pig.
The seeds have grown, says Peppa. My flowers are so pretty.
And George's plant is very tall, says Daddy Pig.
It's a beanstalk,
cries Peppa.
It goes all the way up to a giant's castle.
Ho, ho, ho. No, Peppa, says Daddy Pig. It's a flower, but it does go quite high.
George's flower is taller than our house,
says Peppa.
Wow.
George has grown a sunflower, explains Grandpa Pig. Sunflowers are very tall plants. Well done, George, says Grandpa Pig.
And well done, Daddy, says Peppa. You were a great scarecrow.
The end. Peppa Pig. Peppa gets a vaccination. Mummy Pig was taking Peppa to the doctor for her health check and vaccination. Are we all ready? Said Mummy Pig.
Yes, said Peppa. I've got Teddy.
And I've got your red book, added Mummy Pig.
What's that?
asked Peppa. It's your very own book, said Mummy Pig. It helps doctors see how you're growing up.
Wow.
Hello, Peppa, said Dr. Brown Bear when they arrived. Have you come for your health check and vaccination?
Yes, said Peppa. I've brought my red book and Teddy too.
Very good, said Dr. Brown Bear. You're seeing Dr. Polar Bear today. Suddenly, a bell rang. Ah, that means she's ready to see you, explained Dr. Brown Bear.
Hooray!
Peppa and Mummy Pig walked into the doctor's office. Hello, said Dr. Polar Bear cheerily.
Who do we have here? I'm Peppa,
said Peppa.
And this is Teddy.
Lovely, said Dr. Polar Bear.
Now, did you bring your red book?
Peppa handed her book to Dr. Polar Bear.
Excellent,
said Dr. Polar Bear.
Let's start by seeing how tall you are,
said Dr. Polar Bear. She took Peppa over to the measuring stick. Peppa stood up very straight.
Wonderfully done,
said Dr. Polar Bear.
I'm a big girl now,
Peppa said proudly.
Yes, you are,
said Dr. Polar Bear. She got out her pen and wrote Peppa's height in the red book.
Now, Peppa, can you hop on these for me, please?
said Dr. Polar Bear, pointing to her weighing scales. Peppa stepped onto the scales.
These scales tell us how heavy you are,
said Dr. Polar Bear.
Ooh,
said Peppa.
That's good,
said Dr. Polar Bear, writing in Peppa's red book again.
Now, it's time to use a stethoscope to listen to your heart,
said Dr. Polar Bear.
What's a stethoscope?
asked Peppa.
A stethoscope helps me hear your heartbeat.
Wow.
And the air going in and out of your lungs,
said Dr. Polar Bear.
I put this bit on your chest and listen through the earpieces. Peppa,
said Dr. Polar Bear,
would you like to listen to your heart beating? Yes, please,
cried Peppa. Dr. Polar Bear put the stethoscope earpieces on Peppa's ears. said Peppa.
It's going bumpy dump, bumpy dump, bumpy dump. Bumpy dump, bumpy dump, bumpy dump. Now it's your turn, Teddy,
said Peppa, putting the stethoscope's chest piece on Teddy's chest.
Is Teddy's heart going bumpy bump, bumpy dump, bumpy dump?
asked Dr. Polar Bear.
No,
said Peppa.
Teddy's heart doesn't do that because Teddy is a toy.
Oh, I see, said Dr. Polar Bear, smiling. Next, Dr. Polar Bear got out her special doctor's torch.
Wow.
I'm going to look in your ears now, she said. Dr. Polar Bear shone the torch into each of Peppa's ears. said Peppa.
That tickles.
Dr. Polar Bear checked carefully inside Peppa's ears.
That all looks lovely,
she said.
Now I'll check your mouth,
said Dr. Polar Bear.
I need you to open wide and say, ah.
Dr. Polar Bear opened her mouth and showed Peppa what to do.
Like this.
Ah! Peppa opened her mouth as wide as it would go and stuck her tongue out. She yelled very loudly.
Wonderful,
said Dr. Polar Bear.
Do you want to check my nose?
asked Peppa.
Thank you, Peppa,
said Dr. Polar Bear.
I can see that your nose is working very well.
Everyone laughed. Dr. Polar Bear put lots of ticks in Peppa's red book.
Now, it's time for your vaccination,
said Dr. Polar Bear.
Do you know why we have vaccinations, Peppa?
Peppa put her hand up.
Yes, they stop us from getting ill, and that helps the people around us too.
That's right, said Dr. Polar Bear, impressed.
Sometimes vaccinations are given as a little spray in your nose, and sometimes as a tiny pinprick in your arm.
Peppa held Teddy as Dr. Polar Bear gave her the vaccination. It was very quick.
Well done, Peppa,
said Dr. Polar Bear. Would you like a sticker now?
Oh, yes, please,
squealed Peppa, jumping up.
I love stickers.
Me too, said Dr. Polar Bear, smiling.
Are there any questions you want to ask me before you go, Mummy Pig?
said Dr. Polar Bear.
No, thank you, Doctor,
replied Mummy Pig.
I have a question,
cried Peppa.
Have you had your vaccination, Dr. Polar Bear?
Yes, Peppa, said Dr. Polar Bear.
Good. Then you can have a sticker too. Peppa loves getting stickers from the doctor. Everyone loves getting stickers from the doctor. The end.
Peppa's best birthday party. It was Mandy Mouse's birthday, and she was having her party at Cheese World.
Wow!
What is Cheese World, Mandy? Asked Peppa.
It's the most fun place ever,
Replied Mandy.
There's a cheese river and a cheese mountain, and best of all, there's a cheese castle.
Wow! Everyone gasped. When they arrived for the party, Mummy Mouse took Mandy and her friends to a huge cheese-shaped arch. Welcome to Cheese World, announced Miss Rabbit. Have any of you been here before?
I have.
Cried Mandy.
It's amazing. Wow!
Oh, hello, Mandy, said Miss Rabbit. Nice to see you again. Everyone followed Miss Rabbit past some cheese trees and cheese bushes. So, said Miss Rabbit, everything at Cheese World is about cheese, cheered Mandy. That's right, said Miss Rabbit. And we'll start by sailing on the river of cheese. Mandy cheered again. When they got to the cheese river, 2 little cheese boats were waiting.
All aboard,
called Mandy. And hold tight, added Miss Rabbit, as the boats bobbed along. Miss Rabbit, said Peppa, are these boats made of real cheese? No, Peppa, replied Miss Rabbit. They are made from pretend cheese. Oh, said Peppa. We are now entering Cheese Mountain, said Miss Rabbit as they sailed inside a cave. Is it made of real cheese? Asked Peppa. No, replied Miss Rabbit. But this is what it would be like to sail through a cheese mountain.
wow!
Ooh! Cried Mandy and her friends. If cheese mountains existed, finished Miss Rabbit. After the boat ride, Mr. Rabbit showed the group his cheese aeroplane ride. Mandy explained what to do.
If you pull the lever, the plane goes up.
She said.
And if you push the lever, the plane goes down.
Once the children were safely in their airplanes, Mr. Rabbit started the ride. Up, up and away, he cried.
This is brilliant,
said Molly Mole.
Look, there's a sun made of cheese,
Mandy called.
and the clouds are cottage cheese,
Gasped Susie.
I can see the whole world,
Said Peppa.
it's all cheese.
Was that fun? Asked Mummy Mouse once the children finished flying.
Yes!
Everyone cheered happily.
I told you Cheese World is the most fun place ever.
Cried Mandy. Next, it was time to visit the Castle of Cheese. Hello, Mandy, said Grampy Rabbit when they arrived at the entrance. Have you told your friends about my Castle of Cheese?
I told them it was the best bit,
said Mandy. It is, said Grampy Rabbit. It's where we get to smell real cheese. No pretend cheese here. Once they were inside, Grampy Rabbit said, "Let's start by smelling a mild cheese." Molly and Pedro Pony both took a good sniff. Said Molly.
This smells nice.
I like it too, said Pedro.
Grampy Rabbit sniffed the cheese, but he didn't think it had any smell at all. "Now for something a little bit stronger," said Grampy Rabbit, taking the cover off a second piece of cheese. He took a big sniff. "That's more like it," he said. "A stinky one." Pedro sniffed the cheese. "Ugh!" he cried.
It smells like my daddy's socks.
"And now," said Grampy Rabbit, "it's time for the strongest cheese in the whole world." Grampy Rabbit carefully lifted the cover off the third cheese and took a huge sniff. "Now that's what I call cheese," he said. Next it was Mandy's turn to smell the super strong cheese.
It's the nicest smell I've ever smelled,
She said.
You love smelling cheese, don't you, Mandy? Said Mummy Mouse.
Yes,
Cried Mandy.
but I love eating it even more.
Funny you should say that, said Mummy Mouse.
Mummy Mouse brought out a cake covered in candles.
Wow,
It's birthday cake time, she said.
cheesecake,
Gasped Mandy.
my favourite.
Hooray! Everyone cheered.
This is the best birthday ever.
Cried Mandy. And this is the best birthday party ever, said Peppa. Happy birthday, Mandy!
The end. Peppa's gym class. Peppa and her friends are going to the gym today. Everybody has got their gym kit on, except Pedro. Pedro is wearing a superhero costume.
I thought he was dressing up day today,
He says. Grampy Rabbit is the gym teacher. He swings down from the top of the climbing frame.
Wow. Do we have to do that?
Gasps Emily Elephant. No, laughs Grumpy Rabbit. That's only for big athletes like me. Let's warm up, shouts Grumpy Rabbit. Stretch, stretch, stretch. Everybody reaches up to the ceiling. Now wobble like a jelly, says Grumpy Rabbit. Everybody shakes like a jelly on a plate. It is time for the first adventure. I want you to pretend that this room is a jungle, whispers Grumpy Rabbit.
But where are the trees?
Asks Susie Sheep. You'll have to pretend, replies Grumpy Rabbit. Now imagine a river, says Grumpy Rabbit. Walk on this beam to get across it. Peppa and her friends tiptoe across the river. Well done, my little explorers, cheers Grumpy Rabbit. Grumpy Rabbit shows the children how to swing across a swamp full of crocodiles. That's what he did when he was in the jungle.
I can't see any crocodiles, says Pedro. You've got to pretend,
Whispers Peppa.
What's our next adventure?
Asked Danny Dog. Grampy Rabbit points to a funny table. This is a vault, he says. Pretend that it's a dinosaur and crawl through its legs. Peppa and her friends start crawling. Madame Gazelle comes back in. Did you have a good gym class, children? She asks.
Yes, cries Peppa. We made it through the jungle.
You are real little explorers now, laughs Grumpy Rabbit. The end. Peppa Pig School Project. It is the end of the day at Peppa's playgroup. For your school project, I want you to go home and make a castle, says Madame Gazelle. Use your imagination and make it big and fantastic. Can we use glitter? asked Susie Sheep. Not too much glitter, it gets everywhere, says Madame Gazelle. The next morning, Peppa is eating breakfast. I'm doing a school project, says Peppa. I need to make a castle. Stick these yogurt pots on this cereal box, says Daddy Pig. No, Daddy, it has to be good, says Peppa. I see, replies Daddy Pig. Over at Susie's house, Susie and Mummy Sheep are looking at the computer. Are you sure Madame Gazelle told you to make a real fairy palace? Asks Mummy Sheep. Yes, says Susie, with all the little fiddly bits. Right, says Mummy Sheep. I think I'll stay at home today. Back at Peppa's house, Peppa draws a picture of the castle she wants to make. But it needs to be big enough for me to live in, says Peppa. We need to find a big cardboard box then, says Mummy Pig. Just then, the doorbell rings. Ding dong. Mr. Zebra is at the door with a delivery. It's just a light bulb, says Daddy Pig, opening up the big box. Why do they use so much packaging? Shall I take the box away? asks Mr. Zebra. No, shouts Peppa. We need it for my project. After Mr. Zebra leaves, Mommy and Daddy Pig start making Peppa's castle.
Wow!
Peppa calls Susie on the phone.
How is your school project going?
asks Peppa.
It's going very well,
says Susie. Mammy Sheep puts a tower on the palace.
It needs to be more pointy,
says Susie.
How is your castle going?
asks Susie.
It's hard work, says Peppa, but Mammy and Daddy are helping a teeny tiny bit.
What do you think of this tower, Peppa? asks Daddy Pig.
It looks a bit cardboardy, says Peppa. I need to get on with my work now. Goodbye, Susie.
Daddy Pig has painted Peppa's castle so it doesn't look so cardboardy anymore.
Says Peppa. It just needs one more thing. Glitter.
No, not glitter, replies Daddy Pig. The next morning, Peppa and her friends have brought their castles to playgroup. Susie's fairy palace is very glittery. Wendy Wolf's castle is very glittery. Candy Cat's castle is very glittery. Emily Elephant's castle is very glittery.
My castle is made out of a cardboard box and lots of glitter,
says Peppa.
It is a very fine castle, says Madame Gazelle, and so sparkly.
Now Madame Gazelle is very glittery. Peppa is very glittery. Even Mummy Pig is very glittery. Everyone is very glittery.
Wow.
Isn't it wonderful what children can make using just their imaginations,
says Madame Gazelle.
And my castle is big enough for me to live in,
says Peppa.
Hooray!
Peppa loves school projects. Everyone loves school projects, especially glittery ones. The end. Peppa Pig Treasure Hunt. It is a lovely sunny day. Granny and Grandpa Pig have made a treasure hunt in their garden for Peppa and George. Grandpa Pig is wearing a pirate hat.
Ahoy there, me hearties,
says Grandpa Pig.
Let's search for buried treasure.
Hooray!
George puts on the pirate hat. Now he is Captain George. There is an X on the map. It shows where the treasure is.
It's a bit difficult to read,
says Peppa. She is holding the map upside down. Peppa finds the first clue. It is a piece of paper inside a bottle.
Wow.
It's a message in a bottle,
says Peppa.
It's a message from a pirate, says Grandpa Pig. He says you have to follow the arrows.
Peppa is confused. What does the pirate mean? Captain George has found a second clue. There are some sticks on the ground in the shape of arrows.
Wow.
Look,
calls Peppa.
the arrows point this way.
Peppa and Captain George follow the arrows. The arrows lead Peppa and Captain George through the garden, up and down and round, searching for treasure is very exciting. Peppa spots something at the end of the trail. Could it be the next clue?
Look, George,
cries Peppa.
I found a key.
Hooray!
Now you have to find the treasure chest. It unlocks,
says Granny Pig. Peppa and Captain George look for the next clue, but there isn't one.
Have another look at the map,
suggests Granny Pig. The map says that they need to find 2 apple trees. The treasure is buried in a spot between them. The treasure must be very close now.
Hooray!
Peppa has found the spot.
The treasure must be here,
she tells everyone. Let's take a look, says Daddy Pig. He starts to dig a hole. The spade has hit something hard.
Wow.
Daddy Pig has found the treasure chest.
Wow,
shouts Peppa.
I've got the key to open it.
Everyone joins Peppa and Captain George. They can't wait to see what's inside the chest. The treasure chest is full of shiny coins. Gold, cries Daddy Pig.
Better, says Grandpa Pig. Chocolate.
Peppa and Captain George agree that chocolate is much better than gold, especially when there's enough for everyone. The end.
Hi kids, did you have fun watching this video? Then like and subscribe for more.